Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week, we are here to discuss the third episode of the Jim Henson Hour called Power that aired on April 28th, 1989. And to discuss that episode, we are joined by a very special guest, a man who has loomed large in, stories we've heard from Joe Hennis or Jared Fairclough as we've gone through this podcast, and man who you could say in some version, this podcast could not exist without him. And we'll get into that. This man who is here today to discuss this episode with us is Danny Horn.
Hi. Hooray, I'm so glad to be here. And I love that intro, especially for the folks who are not like super into online Muppet fandom, where you just like, you made a big deal about, hey, guess what, guys? We've got Danny Horn. And they're like, who's that? That's fantastic.
Well, the reason I say that this podcast could not exist without you is because among the many things you have been responsible for along your Muppet fandom timeline, you helped to co-found Muppet Wiki.
Yes.
Which basically, when we started this podcast, I went through every page that I could of Muppet Wiki and turned it into a timeline spreadsheet so that I could feel comfortable saying that we are watching everything the Muppets and Jim Henson did.
Yeah.
So if Muppet Wiki didn't exist, this version of this podcast definitely wouldn't exist.
Matt would have to be like in on the Library of Congress or something.
You had to take my weekly trips to the Library of Congress and just dig through the archives.
Just look at like old newspaper articles and everything. Yeah.
Microfiche. That's a thing, right? So yeah, Danny, thanks for being here.
It is my pleasure. I'm kind of a big deal in Muppet fandom, which is like one of the smallest ways to be a big deal.
It's like I've heard
that.
Yeah, right. Yes, as you know,
I've heard the metaphor of like being famous in internet communities, sort of like being the mayor of a town, and the kind of fandom or community that you are famous in is sort of how big that town is.
Right.
And so, if you're the mayor of a town of 200 people, those 200 people know you.
They know you.
They're going to see you at the grocery store. They're going to walk up and say hi to you. You are so familiar to them. Whereas, if you're the mayor of 5,000, 20,000, whatever, 100,000 town, some people in the town will know you. They'll see you from afar. They'll be like, I think that's the mayor. But I think where you sit is in this small town mayor where the people who are in the Muppet fandom and especially who have been here for years know the name Danny Horn. Right. And I, like I said, a little bit of a mythical figure when we hear about you because we have not met you before today. We have not worked with you in the same way that some of our Tough Pigs friends have. So I want to make sure to lay it out for our listeners who, maybe don't know the name Danny Horn of why you loom so large in this space.
So back in the 90s, I created a fan magazine called Muppetsine. Which was a physical magazine that I used to write and put together and copy and mail to people.
Why? Obviously, you were a fan of the Muppets, but like, what made that leap for you to like, I like the Muppets to maybe I should send a Muppet magazine to people?
Well, I got to be a Muppet fan basically because I was born in the 70s. I was 5 when the Muppet Show started, and it's kind of like one of my clearest memories of earliest clear memories of watching the first episode of The Muppet Show, which was the Rita Moreno episode in New York, and just specifically deciding that I was going to love this for the rest of my life. It was not easy to distinguish yourself as a Muppet fan in the late 1970s because everybody, to some extent, was a Muppet fan. I absolutely distinguished myself, where it was like the only thing I wanted to talk about or wanted to do was going to be Muppet stuff. Now, I was aware that fanzines existed because I was also a fan of Dark Shadows. I don't know if you know that show.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes.
1960s vampire soap opera that I
Yeah.
adore. And I'm also a big deal in that community, weirdly.
Okay.
But there was a Dark Shadows fanzine that was basically like, so this was, I was watching it like in the 80s. It basically like that was the core of that particular fandom, was this one magazine called The World of Dark Shadows, which would come out like every like 4 months. And that was where you'd get like news and reviews and fan fiction and interviews and episode guides. It kind of like did everything. And it was a way for the fans to keep in touch with each other and kind of created a real fandom. And so that's what I wanted to do for the Muppets. So in like summer 1992, I graduated from college. I was working temp jobs. I had a lot of free time and the internet didn't exist yet. And like 2 things happened that made it imperative for me to create a Muppet scene. One was there was a store. I had a summer job in New York, and there used to be a store in New York called Jerry Ollinger's Movie Material Store, which just had 8x10 photos of everything, like every movie, every TV show. They had clearly like acquired these massive like newspaper archives, and they just had everything. And so going in and saying, hey, do you have like Muppet pictures, Henson pictures? It was like, absolutely we do. And they would show me these huge binders of photos that I could go through. I spent probably like all of the money that I earned at my summer job. I just spent that all on Muppet pictures. And I ended up with like this huge library of Muppet pictures. And then I also found out a couple pieces of news. One was, so this was like 1992. I found out that Richard Hunt had died and that the Muppets were working on the Muppet Christmas Carol. And didn't have anybody to talk to about it. And so I was like, well, I have all these pictures and I have this news that I want to tell people about. And I saw how this worked with Dark Shadows. So I'm going to put together my own print zine. So it was called Muppet Zine. It was 28 pages. I did 4 issues a year for 5 years. And it was made at the kitchen table, like with scissors and double-sided tape. And I would take it to the copy shop and print it out on paper. And then I would mail it to people. It was absolutely an absurd thing to do, and I loved doing it. It was like my favorite thing for 5 years.
Did you have help with this, or was it a thing where it was just a labor of love and you were the only person at that kitchen table?
It was a labor of love, but I had a lot of like contributors after a while. There was a cartoonist, Chris Migliano, who discovered the magazine very early, and just like the first time he wrote to me, he sent me like sketches of Muppet characters reading Muppet Zine and being appalled by it. That were so funny. And so like he ended up being the illustrator for the magazine. And then people would like send me news or send me ideas. They would contribute in various ways. After a while I was asking for like other people to send in reviews, and so I'd have like some fan opinion on Muppet Treasure Island or Muppets Tonight or like the stuff that was just coming up. So there were a lot of contributors, but I was the only person who was actually like working on it, writing it, making the thing.
How did people find out about it and like get on your mailing list?
It was a little bit mysterious. There were some places. There was a Muppet news group. I don't know if you guys know news groups. It was sort of like internet forums before there was the internet. So there was a news group where I could promote it. And the first main thing was like I worked in a comic store for a while, and so I sent in ads to this newspaper called the Comic Buyer's Guide, which was like this comic shop newsletter. And there was a zine that was about zines. It was like a directory called Fact Sheet 5.
Okay.
And so if you send your information in, they would just print like, here's another weird fan magazine. I went on the radio in Philadelphia a little bit on like a kids show. There's just like a bunch of weird things that I ended up doing where people found out about it. And then also it was a lot of word of mouth of like people hearing about it and knowing like, oh, I know this other Muppet fan. So it had like just all the news I could find, and that people would send me news, and I did reviews of everything and episode guides for the Muppet Show and Fraggle Rock and the Jim Henson Hour. I did like transcripts of Muppet appearances. Like we couldn't share video clips. And so if the Muppets were on like Larry King Live, I would tape it and I would transcribe it and write it all down. And
like, how did you know that they were going to be on Larry King Live? Being a fan was so hard back then.
I know, everything, like finding things out was tough.
But you were there to, lead the way and let people know what was going on. And I think it's so interesting that, you through just being desperate to talk about Muppets and feeling like this thing needed to exist, ended up giving so many other people an outlet who were also desperate to talk about Muppets and were like, wait a minute, what is this? I can be a Muppet fan in like an official kind of interactive way. I can send in reviews. And so you gave people this opportunity to be an out loud Muppet fan.
Yes.
And how did that feel for you to have that realization of like, okay, this isn't just me?
Oh, that was a specific goal that I had. That was the whole idea for the magazine, was that I was going to meet other Muppet fans. I was going to be able to like have, like you said, like have people to talk to and argue with and play with. And that I was going to create this little community of Muppet fans, which it was, technically not possible to do in print. Just the silliness of like, I put out, it was 4 issues a year. So if somebody wrote something, it would be 3 months before they'd see it. And then if somebody had a response to that and they would like write in and have more things to say, like that would wait another 3 months. It was like,
I mean, honestly,
very, very slow, like beautiful conversations, but this very slow process.
If we could go back to some of that and remove the like instant Twitter response format,
wouldn't that be nice? I know
that would be great.
Maybe not 3 months, but like a week. If it just
you have to
week
think about it
to get everything.
Like you get an alert in a week, be like, hey, so you typed this a week ago. Are you sure you still want to send this?
and so like I was a really bad business person too. I charged so little for this. I ended up losing an immense amount of money on Muppet Zine because like it actually costs a lot of money to print stuff at the copy shop,
right?
And then mail it all over the place. And I don't know why, but it never really occurred to me to like take how much money it took to print and how much money it took to mail and divide that by the number of issues. And then like that's the price of your magazine.
Right. It's like business 101 is like, ooh, maybe I should make more than I'm spending.
And that absolutely 100% did not happen. I was very afraid that if I raised the price that like people wouldn't want to read it anymore.
Sure. Well, at least with zines, you don't look out into the zine landscape and see lots of people who got really rich on zines.
Yeah, no,
so
definitely
you didn't miss out on too much, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess there's a bit of a gap then from when you're working on this zine to when another huge thing that you helped do is create toughpigs.com, which is this internet hub for Muppet fans, which I imagine a lot of our listeners obviously know at this point. But where is the, connective tissue there from how you get from the Muppet zine to helping or creating Tough Pigs?
I made the magazine until 1997, and then that was the point when it was really obvious that there was like a new medium that was coming, and just became obvious that like we were going to be able to communicate with each other on a faster timeline than every 3 months. And so it was a silly thing to do. In 1998, there was a website called Muppet Central, which was kind of like first on the scene and became kind of the flagship website for Muppet fans. And so that was created by a guy named Phil Chapman, and I hooked up with him, and it started with like posting Muppet Zine articles on Muppet Central. That I became kind of like a Muppet Central guy, where I was writing new stuff. I was basically like sort of continuing the Muppet Zine stuff that I was doing, but doing that now on the web. Muppet Central had a forum where then we were making a lot of friends and meeting a lot of people. And there was a point where Phil and I just didn't get along. It's sort of weird, like personal, like history stuff. I was really out about being gay. And I wanted to write about that. And I wanted to write about like being a gay Muppet fan. Because especially like in your 20s, like you really want to like tell people all about it. And Phil was a conservative Christian and was not into that and didn't like me doing that and would like cut parts out of the stuff that I wrote, which created like friction between us. Yeah. And also like the forum was kind of overrun with weird kids who just wanted to like say the same thing, or like be like a kid who was just like completely obsessed with a single like Sesame Street sketch and just wanted to talk about that all the time. I didn't like kind of how they were like moderating the forum. And so I decided that I wanted to do something different. And I thought, well, like I can make a website. I could do better than this. And so Tough Pigs was kind of like the more adult kind of punk rock teenager, like this is the cool Muppet site. This is going to be the one for adult Muppet fans, as opposed to like adults and kids. Well, I didn't want a family audience. I wanted like the adult audience where I could just like write whatever I wanted and have fun with it.
And it still has that like ethos behind it, which is so
Yeah.
interesting that it's really carried on. What is Tough Pigs Press? I'm seeing there's like a press like an announcement of the website. Were you publishing books or something?
No, I made a little when I started Tough Pigs, I created like a little mini zine, like just one little like 8-page magazine that was going to be Tough Pigs Press. Actually, you know what? I should go back a little bit because there was a book that I was going to write. It was called Tough Pigs, Gentle Frogs, a queer reading of television's favorite puppet characters.
Oh, okay.
So this is where the name came from then.
Yeah, it was the late 90s, and I had been to college and got a degree in post-structuralist literary theory, which is the only way to go. And so like it was a time when people were doing queer readings of like the Warner Brothers cartoons and I Love Lucy and Laverne and Shirley, and I was like, I could do that. There's a lot of queer stuff that's in the Muppets, and I noticed that like there were a lot of Muppet fans who were gay, and I had this kind of question of like, why is that? So I was going to write this enormous book, and so I created the website. Originally, the idea for it was that was going to be where I would sell the book. Like once I published the book, then this would be my book website. So that was going to be Tough Pigs Press, and creating the website, what I discovered was like, no, wait, it's just so much more fun to like, rather than write an enormous book that people aren't going to read, I could just like talk to people and write about the news and write about kind of like what's happening with the Muppets. And it could just be a continuation of what I was doing in Muppet Zine. And so that was what Tough Pigs became. But yeah, that's where that title came from.
It is nice to know that, you know, your initial idea behind Tough Pigs, like Sam said, is still very present on the site. Yeah. And the way all the writers use Tough Pigs to talk about cultural things and talk about their lives and what Muppets mean to them. It's nice to know that was, you know, a part of the original idea and is still there. Yeah, it is so much fun. And I worked on Tough Pigs for like 5 years, basically solo. I had like contributors. It's a character flaw of mine that when I'm working on something, like I wanted to do everything myself and was kind of like snobby about it a little bit. And like other people wanted to write stuff. And I was like, no, it's got to be my writing. And so after 5 years, I discovered wikis and moved over to work on Muppet Wiki all the time. And so at that time, then Joe and Ryan were sort of part of Tough Pigs and part of the forum. They saw that the website was basically kind of like going into a decline, and they asked, would it be okay for us to take it over? And I was like, oh my God, that's so great, because I really just wanted to work on the wiki. And so Joe and Ryan kind of picked it up from there and have made it into something that I think is really extraordinary. It still has that same kind of the energy that I put in, and the same sort of style of it's adult, it's kind of funny, it's critical of the Muppets. But then they went in and they do stuff at Comic Cons, and they made podcasts, and they do all these interviews and are really connected to like the Muppets and Sesame Workshop and the Henson Company in a way that I was not going to be able to do myself. Did you get opportunities though during your time to get to do some cool stuff, to visit the sets, or I guess what was the sort of the coolest thing you got to do during your time there? Oh, I did visit the Sesame Street set, and that was really fun, and was not able to write anything about it because they were weird about that. But that was sort of like a fun thing that I got to do. When you were doing the zine, did Muppet people, like people who worked on the Muppets, read it or give you write you letters or anything like that? I used to send blind copies just to like Dave Goles at the Jim Henson Company. I would just like mail it every issue to like a bunch of people there. And I did hear from Jerry Jewell, which was really cool. He was a subscriber, and he wrote a couple things for the site. Yeah, I did a little interview with him, and that was very cool. And Bill Beretta, I ended up doing an interview with Bill Beretta for issue 19, which was super fun to do and very cool, and was kind of like the first like Muppet fan interview. I'm looking at the back like the scanned copies on Tough Pigs, and I'm seeing like you have the script to that Ed Sullivan commercial for toys. Like, how did you find stuff like that? Oh, there was some of that was the Museum of Television and Radio. Oh, okay. It's in New York. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's called the Paley Center now. At the time was Museum of Television and Radio. And
they did a huge Jim Henson exhibit and got like so much stuff donated to them. And so what the Museum of Television and Radio is at its core is like you get to go and watch TV shows and listen to radio shows that they have in their collection, which at this point is not, like we can get basically everything on YouTube now. But at the time, like in the 90s and 2000s, before YouTube, that was the only place to go if you wanted to watch like the Great Santa Claus Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had that. They had like old interviews. They had Jim Henson Hour episodes. They had like all kinds of things that Muppet fans didn't have.
Right.
And so I could go. And so it was, again, like all of this stuff, the zine and the original Tough Pigs was all super low tech, where like I would go to the museum and with a pen and a notebook and just like write down as much stuff, like write down a transcript by hand.
You had to be like everybody's reporter on the street of Muppet stuff.
Exactly.
That's the only way. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think I feel like there's these time periods we talk about in this podcast that feel sort of archaic now and weird to like modern sensibilities, because we're in this time period where now we all sort of expect everything to be available at our fingertips at all times because of streaming. That we're like, why isn't everything Jim Henson ever did on Disney Plus? Which I understand, and also sometimes we'll bang that drum. But we hear so many stories, the history of the Muppets, of people having time periods where they just call up the Jim Henson Company and say, hey, can I have a job? And they're like, yeah, sure, come on over. What? Yeah. That used to work. And then there's this time period where you were maybe the only person who had seen something and could report back on it.
Muppet journalism. Yeah.
Right. And you had to be the only person, aside from somebody who maybe watched it on TV the one time it aired 20 years ago, to be like, hey, this is what happens in this special that nobody else has seen. Yes. Trust me, I guess. I'm not lying.
Well, that's the thing I'm looking at, that script of the toy commercial. There's a sentence in it that is like, this is real, I promise.
Yes, I did like the Great Santa Claus Switch, and I did like on early Tough Pigs, I did a transcript of Tales of the Tinkerbell, which was another thing like that nobody had seen. And so like I didn't have any pictures of it. It was very, the website was very text heavy. It was all black and white and text heavy, because I was trying to be cool.
Well, you made zines, so
I made zines, and so
you're not making color zines. That's too expensive.
Yeah.
So that switch over from Tough Pigs to Muppet Wiki,
yes,
was that? I guess obviously you talked about how Joe and Ryan were like, "Hey, can we help here? Because this maybe needs some help." Mm-hmm. Was that like a moment for you where you're like, yes, please, I want to focus on Muppet Wiki now? Was that like a conscious like turning the page for you, or was that sort of a gradual like, I guess this is happening thing?
It was gradual for me to accept that was what was happening. But I got obsessed with Muppet Wiki very soon. So Muppet Wiki, it originally like came out of stuff that my friend Scott Henson and I were doing on Tough Pigs, where we were like we were researching Muppet history at that point. And we did, if folks want to look this up, this is really fun. My Week with Grover's Mom. We did a long series of 5 articles looking at all the different ways. Scott and I had noticed that you could see Grover's mom in like dozens of storybooks, and that they were all like, some of them were the same, but some of them were really different from each other. And we got really sort of obsessed and fascinated with Grover's mom. And we wanted to write like a history of Grover's mom's life. And so like putting that stuff together with him, of like really researching in these books, like it turned out we just really wanted to like talk about all of the writers and all the artists who were working on this stuff, and like just getting deep into the research details of it. And then basically because of Dark Shadows, again, I discovered wikis. That like the first wiki that I saw that I got involved with is a Dark Shadows wiki, which was on Wikia. And so I was on that for a few weeks, and then realized like, oh, hey, wait, this is what we want, is to have a wiki for ourselves where we could write about everything and kind of make all these connections and make all these lists and do all the fun things that you can do when you're a super obsessed like info collector. And so Scott and I started Muppet Wiki together in 2005, which we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of that. And it is, which is just an insane thing. And we just wanted to have like every character, every episode, every song, like every bit of everything that we could find, all the references to William Shakespeare and the Statue of Liberty, like anything that we could put together.
Every time you see their feet, there's a feet page.
Every time you see their feet.
Well, that sounds, I think the way you said it, like, obviously that's what Muppet Wiki is now.
Yeah.
But when you say that the first time of like, we want to have a wiki that makes all these connections of all these references and all this stuff, before Muppet Wiki exists, how realistic did that feel at the time to be able to flesh that out and to make that a whole thing of like, you know, doing the work of trying to find every time this thing was referenced?
Well, the thing that I fell in love with really was this process of working on it together with lots of other people. That was the thing that, like, Muppet Zine was mostly me by myself with some contributors. Tough Pigs was mostly me myself with some contributors. But Muppet Wiki then was this huge group process that everyone could come in and add a little bit, and it turns into this gorgeous, like, huge thing that none of us could do by ourselves.
Which must have been maybe not a moment that you noticed at the time, but you were talking about how you were, you know, a little bit of, I want control over this. I need to work solo on this because I need it to be what I want it to be. So ending up in a place where you're like, this thing is beautiful because of all the contributors is like quite the arc.
Yeah, it was really different and really kind of taught me how important that was and how much fun that was. So Muppet Wiki now, we just passed 50,000 pages, which is insane. And I basically got so interested in Muppet Wiki that I ended up like, it's not quite this, but basically I got fired from my job because I really, my focus was not because I was like working on Muppet Wiki and not doing my job, but just like my focus was, Muppet Wiki is like the most important, most interesting thing that I'm doing right now. And everything else is not.
I'm getting, hey, you know what? Yeah. I've not edited Kermit during work.
I feel like I just started to get like sweaty of like, wait, we can get fired because we're focusing too much on Muppets? Uh-oh. Bosses, if you're listening, don't worry. We're good boys.
It is not the case. You have good boundaries. Yeah. And so I ended up like, I was so into wikis that I ended up then working for the wiki company. Like, whoa. That was kind of how obsessed I got. Yeah. So I started working at Wikia and just kind of being and I moved to San Francisco and I just got kind of fascinated with this as technology. But sort of so if I was like losing touch with my job and losing touch with a lot of things, like I also kind of lost touch with Tough Pigs. And so there was more than a year, I think, where I was really just focusing on the wiki and like the forum. Tough Pigs forum still existed and was still very strong and going, but I just wasn't writing stuff anymore. And so when Joe and Ryan offered to take it over, I was really happy. I was like, oh my God, yes. It was that thing of like, I'm so glad that you're doing this. I don't really have the headspace for it anymore, but this is a thing that should continue. And like I said, and they just built it into something really special.
So what is your work like now on Muppet Wiki? Are you still pretty consistently a part of those discussions and working on that?
Yeah, I've been in and out because I've had other projects that came up. So the reason why I'm a big deal in Dark Shadows fandom is I wrote a blog for 5 years called Dark Shadows Every Day.
Oh, I know that blog.
Oh, do you really?
Well, I watch every Halloween. I'll turn on the Dark Shadows Pluto channel and just have it on all the time because it's got such a great vibe. And so I spent like one Halloween just like being deeply into it and like reading as much stuff as I could about it because there's so many episodes I couldn't ever hope to like have actually watched it all. But I was just like, what happens to this person? What happens to this person?
That is so funny. Yeah. And so Dark Shadows, it's like the first stuff on the scene with websites and wikis was like science fiction. Basically, it was like Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who and Dark Shadows. It was that kind of thing. And then kind of coming in and doing a Muppet thing was the thing that was new and weird. And so now we have this amazing site where like we have, I guess you guys probably talked about this, but we have an episode guide for every single episode of Sesame Street.
Yeah, which is
mammoth. Like,
yeah. It is interesting to see how this has sort of like Ouroboros at sometimes where like the Muppet performers now and the Muppet writers now are researching on Muppet Wiki or learning things or remembering character names only because of Muppet Wiki. And so it does become this thing where it is, starting off as purely a fan, being
Mhm.
informed by the content, and now literally informing the content and helping it
Right, like
exist.
becoming the experts on it, that the people who
Yes.
actually are making the stuff are not.
So what, I guess, like, obviously you've dipped in and out of
Mhm.
Muppet fandom from time to time, you know, being on the forefront of things with like writing for sites, sometimes dipping maybe more into the background, just working on Muppet Wiki. Recently, you came back to host the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast for Tough Pigs.
Yes.
So what sort of drives your interest in coming back, deciding to come back and, you know, being a bigger part of the fandom like that?
I missed the Muppets, and I missed Muppet fans. So like once Dark Shadows Every Day, once I finished, I wrote about every episode of Dark Shadows, and so once I was done with that, like 1,100 posts, I did a superhero blog for a little while that did not work out as well, and then there was like the awards that you guys have won, those like Muppet fan Twitter awards, where that Tori Schmidt set up to celebrate Muppet fandom and to celebrate like the cool stuff that people are working on now. I was a part of one of those ceremonies and was just like talking to Muppet fans again and realized like how much I'd missed working on Muppet stuff. And so I had this big idea about how I was going to do a show that was just about Miss Piggy, who's my favorite character, like my favorite Muppet character and like literally my favorite fictional character. And I was going to, so I made a podcast, 11 episodes of like just my love of Miss Piggy and how she developed and how she became who she is. I also run the Muppet Pictures social media feed. So on like Facebook and Blue Sky and Twitter, I post 2 pictures of Muppets every day.
I assume this is obviously not the case, but I love the idea that you're still working off the stack of 8x10s that you purchased 30 years ago, where it's just like, I got all these pictures, I got to put them somewhere.
It is, yeah, you're right. That is actually, it's like the same impulse of like, I have all this stuff that I've collected and I need to share it with people.
The concept of that store is so wild. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
It was like props and pictures and just like anything that he could find?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It was mostly pictures. It was sort of centered around like actually it probably originally started as a movie poster store.
Right. Okay.
And then moved into pictures and then moved into other kinds of things.
That's so cool.
I wish it was still around because it was super, super cool.
With any, online fandom, I think there's obviously they can be very fickle and tumultuous and very negative in a lot of spaces. And so I'm curious, a couple things, like one, how you've dealt with, they are out there, folks, very negative, hateful sometimes Muppet fans in forums. And I guess how maybe you've steered that or tried to create more positive spaces with things like Tough Pigs and Muppet Wiki. And do you think that's why they've stuck around so long?
I mean, the funny thing is that Tough Pigs was like the more negative critical site when we started. Like Muppet Central was the one where like absolutely everything that the Muppets did was great and everything that the Henson Company did was great. And Tough Pigs was the one where I could say like, actually,
yeah,
stuff,
totally.
Stuff that you have seen, stuff that you will see once you get into the 90s. Like actually not all of this is that amazing. And let's talk about that. But the idea was always kind of coming at it through love and through humor, mostly not like just getting angry, and definitely not like fighting with other people was not really the goal. The goal was just to have fun and to share stuff and to enjoy being a Muppet fan. Yeah. So I and on the forum, like if folks were super negative, I could kick them out if I wanted to.
I've just been thinking, since you mentioned that you started the zine partially because of Muppet Christmas Carol coming out. And then you talked about like back in the early days of forums, there were people who just wanted to talk about one thing, and both like that just feels like things are sort of same as it ever was in a way. But was there, when Muppet Christmas Carol came out, what did people, because now it's like beloved, but what did people think about it back then?
That is the weirdest thing for me, that people love them, because when the Muppet Christmas Carol came out, people did not love it. Like it was very specifically not loved. It did not make a lot of money.
I remember it coming out, and yes, I don't even know if I went to see it in theaters.
Yeah, the reviews were bad for the most part, and I actually have written on Tough Pigs about this. I wrote an article about like the staggering weirdness of Muppet Christmas Carol being popular, that has quotes from like all of these, like Boston Globe hated it, New York Times hated it, like People Magazine hated it, like everybody hated that movie. And I think it's only really it's become beloved because it has become like a Christmas standard that people, then that's the Muppet thing that you could trot out when there's when it's Christmas time. And so people kind of like grew up with it as being a part of their Christmas. And I think for a lot of people, it's like the first Muppet thing that they really saw.
It's really applicable too. Like it's a good on-ramp to Muppets.
I have plenty of friends who could not care less about Muppets, but they will watch and enjoy Muppet Christmas Carol every year.
Yeah.
What did you think of it at the time?
I mean, I was kind of disappointed with it because I wanted it to be more like of the wacky, zany Muppet stuff that I wanted them to get back to. And it's really easy. I think now, like, basically the perspective that people have gotten is that, like, that wasn't the only Muppet. That wasn't, like, the last Muppet thing that happened. Like, then there's Treasure Island and there's Muppets Tonight and there's, like, a whole bunch of stuff. And so that's just kind of, like, that's one moment in time when that was the thing that was happening. But in 1992, it felt, Henson had died. And then this was the first major, like, Muppet thing that came after that.
Right.
And so at the time, like, this is what the Muppets are. And it's, like, it's slow. Christmas Carol is a weird kind of, to some degree, like morose character study, which is just such an odd thing for the Muppets to like put themselves inside of. So at the time it was disappointing, but I can totally see now, and I'm so thrilled that that it got rediscovered and that people love it now.
Yeah.
It was depressing to be a Muppet journalist, a Muppet fan journalist, like in my first couple issues, sort of writing about, well, that was the thing that people didn't like.
Well, I mean, the zine spans a period of time that I feel like was a pretty slow Muppet time, right?
Yeah, 96 was when it got really exciting. It was it was sort of Christmas Carol, and then there wasn't a lot. And then 1996 was Muppet Treasure Island and Muppets Tonight.
Right, okay.
And so I wrote a lot about those things.
So I'm curious, you've been through all these different phases of Muppet fandom. What is your fandom like these days? Like you said, you came back because you missed talking about Muppets. You felt compelled to come back to it. And now that you sort of, dived back in, how are you feeling about your own fandom? How do you feel like the fandom, like which sort of at one point you were sort of the keeper of, is doing these days, like sort of on its own, like a kid gone to college now?
Right.
I guess how you're feeling about the Muppet fandom these days?
I mean, I'm delighted by what has come out of it. Like Tough Pigs, the thing that Tough Pigs figured out, that Joe and Ryan figured out, was like, oh wait, we could have a whole staff. Like we can have a whole bunch of people all contributing to this and bringing new ideas and new things to it. And then like making this huge network of podcasts like that Tough Pigs has just done by themselves is real extraordinary. And then stuff like what you guys are doing and Muppeturgy and like people who are doing these amazing deep dives into Muppet history and finding fun and interesting things to say about it. Like that was the thing that I wanted to create when I created Muppet Zine. And I am super delighted with what that has become. And like you said, it's on the whole, a very positive fandom. We don't really fight with each other or abuse each other. It's a group of good people. And the core of what I did with all my Muppet stuff and that I still see today is like, no one's trying to make money off of it. Nobody's trying to be famous off of it. It is just like, we just love sharing stuff with each other. And so we're going to like write stuff and make stuff and put it out there for free.
I think we're outside of like how fans engage with each other with the Muppets. I do feel like we're in a place that you described being in with Muppet Christmas Carol, where it does feel like every Muppet project that comes out, it's like, this is the last chance.
Yeah,
or like, this is what the Muppets are going to be, or like we're all just waiting to see like, is this going to be the thing that takes off or not?
Right.
And that I don't know. How do you feel towards the Muppets as an entity these days?
Oh, it's still like exactly the same and what you described. Yeah. I'm psyched about the new Muppet Show. I've actually been saying for years and years that that they should just make the Muppet Show again. Like that's the place where they make sense. It's still a format that can work. And they have spent, what is it now? Like 40 years, like running away from that format and thinking like, oh, well, that wouldn't work. And I'm so excited that they're actually like coming back to it and saying like, hey, you know what? This worked when we did it at the Hollywood Bowl. It worked when we did it at the O2 in London.
Yeah.
Maybe people would like this again.
Maybe the way that people engage with content is almost like a variety show anyway, because you're swiping through something that's like
true.
1 minute of a cat falling down, and then 1 minute of somebody telling you about like some kind of a secret cult that's ruling the world, and then
just upload Muppet Show sex and violence to TikTok in pieces and see how people react.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm psyched about it too. I was thinking about Seth Rogen the other day for some reason. I was looking at Apple TV and being like, wow, Seth Rogen's got a lot of shows on this. Then I was like, and they're kind of funny. I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be okay. Even if it's not a huge success, I still think it will be good.
And I guess that is what it has been to be a Muppet fan for
forever.
For all of these years is like
totally.
There's always the next thing.
Yeah. Because even like me and Matt we're the Muppets period TV show apologists. And
are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
we seem to be alone on this island sometimes. And it's fascinating to me because, I'm not going to argue with people. They don't need to like it. I like it. But I also, everyone's critique is very similar of it, which is interesting. And I think I want to have at some point maybe like a round table panel discussion episode
I love that.
of like us two and 5 people, maybe including yourself,
we gotta
who didn't enjoy 2015 TV series, because I feel like there are so many examples from the past, whether it's the Muppet Show or other things we've watched, that have dipped into some cynicism or weird mean moments at
Kermit.
times.
I think Kermit's always had a bad attitude.
Yeah.
Right,
So I think like for that to be the major critique of that show from so many people, like I get it, but I also like it doesn't surprise me too much when I watch that series. And also there's just some things that Sam and I enjoy about that show that always seem to be the thing that people are like, I can't believe they did this. And we're like, oh, all right. Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Fozzie dating a human was the best thing ever. I don't know.
Precisely.
I don't know why when he thinks that. Yeah.
The 2015 series has sort of like this weird place, I think, in Muppet history because it kind of killed the Muppets for a while.
Sure.
Like it could have been such like Muppets Most Wanted, I think, was actually a really great project that nobody watched. And then getting the Muppet series was so exciting. And then like because that failed ultimately, I think is why like Disney kind of ran away from the Muppets for a while. And didn't make a lot of Muppet stuff, and like everybody's goodwill kind of like got drained out.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how I feel like some things either aren't given the chance they deserve to improve, to reach a more mainstream audience, or are sort of forced into a box from the start and have to be a very specific thing and don't get to like they either have to be for the diehards or they have to be for everyone, and like nothing's for everyone. You can't expect to win over every single person who's never watched a Muppet thing that this is going to be the thing you're going to convince them to watch by getting Chelsea Handler to be on it. So I do think there are some things that that show does that I don't enjoy for a TV show. But I think as far as the humor of it and the personalities they give to them, I liked that they took a swing and tried some new things there.
Yeah, I do too. There's a lot that I like about the show. Although on the whole, ended up kind of disappointed with it. And with the Jim Henson Hour.
Well, speaking, lovely segue.
Yeah.
We are here, surprisingly, you maybe forgot this because we kind of did too. We are here to discuss an episode of the Jim Henson Hour. And full confession, just because of, syncing up schedules here, Sam and I are watching these episodes a little out of order right now.
Something tells me it doesn't matter.
Maybe not, but maybe episode 2 is the best episode ever. So
maybe
I'm putting that out there to say that we have watched and reviewed episode 1 in the previous episode. We did not love it, but now we are talking about episode 3 here with Danny, having not seen or talked about episode 2. So
this is the second one that you've.
This is the second one we're seeing.
Okay.
Yes. So we will we don't know right now our opinion on episode 2.
The second episode. Right.
So
we may be. Episode 2? Was that Lighthouse Island?
That is Lighthouse Island.
Okay.
So we know nothing about the Ted Danson of it all. We know nothing about Lighthouse Island at this point. We have seen episode 1 and now episode 3. So we'll see. if there's a weird, roller coaster of emotions here. But yeah, how about maybe the latest I've ever said this in an episode? Sam, what do we watch this week?
This week, as you said, we watched the third episode of the Jim Henson Hour. Original air date April 28th, 1989. In the Muppet Television segment, Gonzo tries to pitch Kermit on a roller skating chicken act, but Kermit doesn't want to use it, instead showing a musical number from guests The Nylons and then a soap opera. Gonzo, insulted by the rejection, wonders aloud to Leon why Kermit always gets to be in charge, and Leon suggests in return that they try to take over the show. Instead of doing like a mutiny or something like that, they just go up to Kermit and say, "Can we have the show?" And he says yes right away. He agrees to let them have a shot running the station, which surprises Gonzo and Leon. And then Kermit goes off.
It's a very Tough Pigs 2005 moment.
Oh yeah,
they come up and they say, "Hey, this isn't going that well. Can we just take this?" And the answer is, "Yeah, right. No, I'd love to."
Yeah, and then Danny went off to his hammock for a while. Got a little bored and was like, "Actually, maybe I do want to be a part of this again."
After Kermit goes off, the rest of the Muppets try to figure out how to run the station. They just literally don't know how to run the station. They completely fail to do anything really, not in like an interesting or spectacular way. They just are kind of like, we don't know how to do this. And then they go to where Kermit's relaxing and they tell him that they need his help. Kermit was sort of bored anyway, so he agrees. And then they all sing a big Caribbean flavored song about friendship. And that's the end of the Muppet Television part. Then, very abruptly, it is the storyteller with the story The Soldier and Death. And this is long. I apologize for how long it is. They just cover a lot of ground in this episode. A soldier is marching home from war with nothing in his pockets but 3 biscuits. Along the way, he runs into 3 beggars and gives each of them a biscuit. For his generosity, they gift him the ability to whistle very beautifully, the ability to dance very nicely, and then the last one kind of outdoes the other 2 by giving him a magic deck of cards that he can use to always win every game he plays, and a magic sack that he can use to compel anything that he wants to climb into it. The soldier eventually comes to a ruined castle on a hill and is told that it is the Tsar's old castle and has been taken over by devils who kill all intruders and play a raucous, infernal card game every night. So the soldier goes to the castle at night and uses his trick cards to win all the gold that the devils have hoarded. When they try to kill him in retaliation, he makes them get into the sack and then he smashes them against the ground until they all surrender and run away. And as they're running away, he grabs one of them, he rips his foot off, and he compels the devil to swear loyalty to him. So
you really do, for this to make any, you really do have to go beat by beat like this, because there's just it's this weird Shaggy Dog story.
Yeah, totally. As I write it, I go back through and I delete parts that aren't important. The foot thing I should have deleted, because the foot thing actually doesn't matter that much.
It feels like in the moment it happens, it feels like an accident that they just went with, but then it comes up later on. So you're like, well, I guess that was part of the story. There are definitely, it feels like gaps in this story that they had to skip ahead for time sort of thing. And I'm just like, it didn't really end up being important.
Well, I mean, and then sometimes you look at the wiki of the actual tale from back in time, and it's exactly the same, because people were just weird back then.
It's it's fine, he's got his foot, no big deal.
Be like, why didn't you go back and write it so that each beggar gave him a different gift instead of 2 that don't matter? It's whatever. I already wrote it in ink with a quill. I cannot go back and change this. So anyway, he's won back the Tsar's castle. The Tsar rewards him with riches and a mansion of his own, and the soldier starts a family. And everything's going great until one day the soldier's son falls very ill, and the soldier summons his devil to try to cure his son. The devil looks through a magic goblet that you can use to see death and sees that death is not quite ready to take his son. So the devil sprinkles water from the goblet onto the son, and the son gets better. The soldier tells the devil that he will release him from his bond if he will give him the magic goblet, and the devil agrees. So then the soldier travels around the kingdom, healing whoever he can, and then telling everybody else that they're going to die for a fee, until eventually death comes for the soldier himself. However, when death comes to claim him, the soldier makes death get in the sack. So he's trapped in the sack. He ties him up in a tree while Death is captured. No one in the world can die, which is great for a while until the soldier notices that the world is filled with messed up old people who are just wandering around and want to die. So he lets Death out of the sack and tells him to claim everyone who should be dead, which Death does. But Death is so scared of the soldier's sack that he never comes to claim the soldier. So the soldier lives for a long ass time. He gets really sick of being alive. He walks to the gates of hell and tries to get in. They don't let him in. He walks to the gates of heaven and tries to get in. They don't let him in either. So then he just has to live forever and ever. And the implication, I think, is that he is the storyteller. Is that the end of that story?
That's not what I got.
The sack.
No.
The storyteller has, I think, overlapped with plenty of things in stories in ways that have perplexed us. I think there's a couple moments
where it cuts to the dog, and the dog's kind of like, "Is this dude the story? Is this guy?" And he has the seal. He has like the regiment of the soldier on his robe too.
Yeah, I think we've often theorized that the storyteller is somehow overlapping with these people, even when we don't see it, and is often stealing things from them, whether it be their castle or their belongings.
Well, the soldier is kind of an opportunistic dude who's traveling all over my headcanon, and I believe the implication of the episode was that the storyteller was the soldier. That's what I'm taking away from
that. Did not occur to me, but I think there is evidence there.
I think you're giving it too much credit to actually make sense. I think what happened was
the storyteller is kind of like he could be anybody, anywhere. You don't actually know.
Yeah,
and then the devil flies out of the sack at the end.
The storyteller likes to mess with his dog, and it'll be funny if we mess with the dog.
There's that
because the dog always just be like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Well, and then that's the whole episode of the storyteller, and Jim's there too. And at the end, he's just like, "See you next week.
Bye,
everyone. Get their library card."
That was like when Kermit was making fun of Jim for being a bad host a couple episodes ago that we talked about. That was kind of like, there it is. He did not do a good job with that outro.
But I don't think he's given the correct ammunition to be good.
Agree.
Like,
I agree with that.
They could write something better than everyone get your library card. Yeah. That's not Jim's fault.
And write something better than see you next time.
Yeah. I am very curious as we talk about this episode, just at the time, what you thought of the Jim Henson Hour, Danny.
Mm-hmm. Well, I assume that you guys are still sort of grappling with like the existential weirdness.
I mean, we've seen one episode. We did not enjoy it very much at all.
I think what we did was we like tracked it. So we watched everything leading up to it. So we saw Liquid TV. We saw his pitch reel for it. We've tracked so much of it up until it happening that for me, it's so much like the bad ideas he was proposing initially that I'm just kind of like, I can't believe somebody let him do this.
Yeah.
So it's not really as weird as it is just like, come on, man.
Well, did you talk about Walt Disney?
The inspiration of like he wanted to have his Wonderful World of Disney show.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think we talked last time about some of the quotes that come from Brian J. Jones's biography about this period of time, where some people were like, "Hey, if we were given a bit more time, I think we could have really polished it into something good." And other people who worked on the show were like, we just couldn't stop Jim from throwing everything at the wall. Like we couldn't funnel that into a solid, good idea. He just wanted to do everything all at once. Yeah. And I think that's what it felt like to us. Whereas previously we discussed, we were looking forward to this because we were hoping that it was like a distilled, boiled down version of everything good Jim had ever done in one show. And I think I described it previously as just, it ended up more of as an unflavored stew of everything tossed into a pot, hoping that something good might come out.
He really wanted to be Walt, where like anything that Walt, in the 50s and the 60s, like anything that Walt wanted to show America was like, yeah, great, okay, whatever that is. And so that was like cartoons sometimes, and it was like live action shows sometimes, and it was like science sometimes, and that was what Jim really wanted, was like to be that kind of figure. He wanted to like mature into this figure where like he could just get attention for anything that he turned his hand to, and sort of found out that like, oh wait, I'm not actually Walt Disney. And more importantly, like 1989 wasn't 1955, because Walt had like this unbeatable brand at a time when there weren't as many options. And so then here's Henson coming in and kind of wants that like power over the audience and doesn't get it.
Well, it feels to me also like people wouldn't, that like there were like suits who worked at the stations or whatever who like wouldn't let him be that either, who were like, you have to do a part where you're doing the Muppet Show again. And you can kind of tell that he's like a little bit begrudgingly doing the Muppet television part, and then would like to do what his original idea was, where something different every time. So to me, it does feel like he has one hand tied behind his back, and is kind of also probably in the same boat we're in, where it's just like, well, this isn't really what I wanted to do, and I don't see how this could like work if I don't get to do it how I want it. But he didn't, like you said, he didn't have like that ability or like that power behind him to actually do whatever he wanted to do.
And there's stuff that he didn't like. Muppet television is not the Muppet Show in these ways that I think are super interesting. Like basically, it's quiet. Muppet television is too quiet.
Yeah, totally.
They don't have music the way that they did on the Muppet Show. They don't have laughter or applause.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about that last time, missing that laugh track.
It's one of the biggest things that I feel like I'm missing is, I will say overall, this episode, I liked a little more than the first episode. It feels more polished to me in a lot of ways. But especially during the Gonzo and Kermit bits that feel like Muppet Show bits in a lot of ways, missing that applause, that laugh track, that reaction at all, like... It just feels like they're begging you to clap at home. Like they're like looking at you like, please, I hope you're enjoying this, because we don't know. And obviously they didn't have a real studio audience when they were making the Muppet Show, but you felt it. You felt the energy.
Like you were part of that.
Yeah. And it just felt more alive and real in a way where I get like, this isn't in a theater. There's not supposed to be an audience. You're in the back room of a TV station. But like, give us a little bit more energy, as opposed to so many times it just feels like something happens and then it falls off a cliff and we're just calmly in the back room like, all right, so well, I guess what should we do next?
There was that. Right. Yes.
Totally.
Yeah. And it doesn't really like set up an environment.
No, the fact that the nylons are like in this and don't interact in any way with the show.
Annoying. That's what happened in the first episode too.
Yeah, but like at least we had some
Louis was on set with some lobsters and stuff.
Right, and we had Louis Anderson on the TV talking to Kermit. The idea that you have the nylons do what I think is a pretty enjoyable musical number, but then have no interaction at all with Kermit or anybody else. It's like, okay, well, you could kind of say they were like your special guest this week, but you're so tied to this format of finding random things on satellite TV and having to tune in that like they're not really your guests, but they're kind of your guests. And it's just, I don't think it works.
Yeah, it's just like a clip that we show, and then which finishes in icy silence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's not even anyone cheering the musical performance.
Yeah, it just even ends, and they're like, okay, what's next?
Gonzo's, I think someone is like, yeah, that was pretty good. I guess you're right.
Right.
Yeah, even the nylons are probably just like, I guess we go away now. We just walk off the set.
Thanks for that. Yeah. And it's just, and there's something that's cold about like doing all of this in front of a green screen. That if you compare that to backstage on the Muppet Show, where everything is like wood and warm, and like there's different levels and people can kind of go back and forth, you can do different things within you, and you can imagine like walking around in that environment. With Muppet Television, they're working in front of a green screen, and really all they can do is like stand in a line or like cluster up in a bunch. And that's kind of all they can do. Like, you can't wander around in this. You can't explore this set. They can't do anything, like, super interesting. Everything has to be, like, right in the foreground.
And then the fact that the set is there's so much depth, like, illusion of depth to it, makes it stand out even more that they're, like, not actually there. Because
they're not interacting with that background.
This is the problem we've had with television screens.
When we talk about more recent Sesame Street things, a lot of times, like we miss the days of giant sets on Sesame Street, like not just being on the street itself, but you know, the Count's Castle or things like that, where it's just like, well, here's a background of an animated version of the Count's Castle that they get to perform in.
Right.
And it's just, even on Muppeturgy recently, they did their Roger Moore episode, and they talked about the small moment where Roger Moore is walking down the steps and reaches over and like pets Gaffer the cat. And I remember when we watched that episode, that stood out to us as such a sweet, like weird moment of him just going like, oh, a cat, I'll scratch that. And those kind of weird random moments that ultimately aren't important.
Yeah.
Those can't happen.
the whole appeal of the Muppets up until that point was like they're on talk shows and you can be like off the cuff weird with them and you're on their
and
show
they're
walking
real
through their world,
like
and they're real. Yeah,
this show does not convince me that the Muppets are real
yeah,
and
they feel like
exist in
cartoon
our
characters
world
in a different universe. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, what do you guys think of this episode?
I agree with you that it was more well, actually, no, I don't, because I liked at the end when Louis started interacting with things more and they sang Chattanooga Choo Choo, even though that was like they just wish they could do the Muppet Show again. That felt more cohesive than anything that really, like when they went to Kermit's Island or whatever and they were just like, we're sorry, and he's like, it's okay, and then they sing a song about friendship. Is like, you didn't have anything. There was nothing here. And it made me kind of sad because Gonzo was like, it's like Gonzo's trying to pitch an old Muppet Show sketch to Kermit, and Kermit's like, nah, we're done with that shit. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I enjoyed the writing overall better in this episode. There was a lot of more like lines in this that stood out to me. There's something that I think I will remember forever, which is Willard Scott saying, I live like a king on the fruitcake of strangers.
Yeah, that was very weird and interesting.
I want to tattoo that across my chest. It's just the most beautiful line I've ever heard. And I enjoyed the song, the Sweet Vacation song. I think it works as it feels like a Muppet Show song that they would do.
Totally.
And they're on like a Muppet Show style set.
Yeah.
And so the characters like, those two songs, like Chattanooga Choo Choo from the first episode and then Sweet Vacation, like unfortunately don't get too attached to like closing numbers because there aren't a lot of them. Like they don't all end like that with like a nice sort of rousing number. Some of them just kind of like go flat. Like all the sketches do. So yeah, enjoy Sweet Vacation while we got it to talk about.
I also really liked the Monster-thon thread throughout it. And I thought, I don't know, there's like, this is one of those things where it's like there's 2 or 3 different ideas that could have actually been a whole more interesting episode. And it's like the Monster-thon and Fozzie at the Today Show. It's like, just let all the Muppets go to the Today Show and hang out with the Today Show people for 20 minutes. All you have to do is fill 20 minutes. You could have done that probably. Yeah,
there are a number of things in this that I feel like are a good idea written down. And somebody was like, we should do this. And then something happens. And they kind of forgot to do the then something happens part of it. Like even it opens up with Dog from the Storyteller being there instead of the lion. And I like the bit of continuity they have with saying, oh, the lion, he got a job at the public library. And then we see him in the Nylons music video at the library. It pays off at the end a little bit. But the fact that nothing happens with Jim and the dog interacting in any way or talking about like, well, where did you come from? Oh, you're this guy. You're the Storyteller's dog. I know you. Like they just are like, hey, where's the lion? Oh, you got a job. Okay. Next.
I think Jim was like, that's strange.
It's like, yes, it is, Jim, but you're setting up this world. You can make it a little bit more interesting.
This was your idea.
Yeah, it's weird how those openings don't really like that they don't connect that much.
I think so too. Because you can feel him, like he loves to sit and talk about the stuff he does. And you can feel that he would love to be more like, this is how we made the devil. Why not just say this is how we made the devil puppets? Like, why? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's what I'm really wishing
the
for.
Walt Disney comparison, I think, what a lot of those, I haven't seen obviously every episode of the old Wonderful World, Magical World of Disney type shows. But what I remember from what I have seen is it feels like you are in the workshop in Imagineering, feeling the future be created in front of you. Like it feels like a living, breathing company where Walt Disney is slowing down for a moment to talk to you about the cool stuff he's doing. But you also are you feel like you're getting to see behind the curtain in a way that this is definitely not. I know that we get some of that in some of the specials coming up, but Jim does not feel like he is here to talk to us about the Muppets. He feels like he is here as a TV host to segue between some other segments.
Right. Yeah, kind of like this is just stuff that he likes. Is sort of the way that it feels. Not really, like you say, like not really like here's stuff that I am making right now.
Yeah, it's more like a guy at a party pulling out a laptop and saying, "Ooh, you have to watch this YouTube video I saw."
Somebody making you watch YouTube videos. It is like that, man.
And you're like, okay, we're still we're gonna watch the whole thing. It's 25 minutes long. You realize that, right? He's like, yeah. Just keep watching.
This is really
and you're like, okay, any
keeps
insight for me?
Looking at you and being like, "This is pretty great, huh?"
That's what they should do. They should have a little pop up in the corner where Jim's like, "Are you still watching?"
Yeah, like
you
a
like in it?
game show where the celebrities are in the bottom, and he's just like, "These guys."
And you are watching. There's an episode coming up that you'll see where they actually like talk about the ratings, and you can see the ratings going up or down during the episode,
No.
which is such a sort of self-reflexive, like, anxiety.
Kermit mentions, like,
keep the ratings up.
Like, oh, brother.
Yeah, so but you're totally right. It is like Jim Henson saying, like, "Hey, here, watch this thing," and all of America just kind of slowly is like, maybe not.
Well, especially the switch, the halfway point between Muppet Television and the Storyteller. The 2 times we've seen is so abrupt. Just like this, it ends with a fun closing number or a big Muppety moment, and he comes back. And he's like, "Hey, shh, watch this."
Right?
Yes. Totally. Here's this creepy, weird thing now. Yeah, but if he was walking through the Muppet Workshop, being like, "We made and you could see like the devil with its face off, and be like that just for a second, just for a little bit,
right?
And
now here's where we're using that.
Totally, I think that would have made so much difference.
I think there's a moment where in one of those old Disney specials where he's walking around and like Mary Blair is sitting off to the side drawing some things,
people pretending to work behind him.
Yeah, but like if you had Jim walking around and Bonnie Erickson or whoever is sitting off to the side working on something, and he can walk up and be like, "Hey, let's check in with Bonnie," and you get to see, whether it's one of the puppets that was just shown in a sketch or whatever, like that at least would be something. Like it would be more of a thing. Because I did enjoy the Monster Telethon bit. I think that felt very Muppet Show. The fact that it also inserted itself into other sketches throughout the show, I think breaks the format and the idea of the actual show a little bit with the satellite TV.
They don't know what they're doing.
No, like how they're crossing signals, but that's not part of the bit. It feels like they're just all in the same TV studio. So maybe the show should just be, we run a TV studio. But I enjoyed that.
They do that too later.
Wow.
That's true. So yeah, I think there are bits and pieces I liked. I did like Fozzie at the Today Show. It did. I think, like, obviously we're going to read too much into this because we are who we are. But the moment, it was kind of sad to me when Fozzie and Kermit were talking over the TV screen.
Yes. Yeah. Because
it felt like old friends who were like, "Hey, I was supposed to call you last week. I'm so sorry. How'd your show go?"
Oh, I didn't think about that.
They do have like such a cute little relationship. Like even over I think they do it really well. Like even over the obvious fact that like they were filmed at different times,
right?
That there is like warmth there, and I think like you said with Kermit and Gonzo, there's that same warmth there. But then Frank Oz and Fozzie's great because Frank Oz is great, and him doing a classic kind of Fozzie performance is really effective. But then it just feels like the rest of the show that gets kind of drained out. They did the Time Channel. Time Channel, I think, is one of the best sketches that they do.
That felt very Muppet Show, and it felt appropriate. And that's honestly because that was so early in the episode. I was like, hey, now maybe we got something
right, maybe
here.
This is gonna be great. Yeah.
Because we had Monster Telethon followed by that, and I was like, okay, we're cooking up here. And then it just kind of you get into the Gonzo and Leon stuff, and I'm like, I don't need you guys, go away.
Yeah, and I understand also why they had to have so many new characters, but I just cannot get with some of the designs of like Clifford looks great, but I can't look at Leon and be like, you're supposed to be there, and I especially can't look at Vicky and be like, you're supposed to be there. Vicky looks so out of place to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she looks like a toy from The Secret Life of Toys.
Yeah, you're right. She does. Yeah. And Digit looks weird. Like Digit is super important to the show.
Yeah.
And looks like a weird kind of like cold character. I think a lot about like warm versus cold with the Jim Henson hour that like
and there's a lot of cold puppets in this era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how they made Lindbergh exist, and they just were like, okay, we got a new character. He's a kiwi bird. What should it be like? You remember Beauregard? Yeah, do him again.
We got a new brown fuzzy guy who's a janitor.
Yeah. When he's like, hey, Chief, what should we do? I'm like, stop. You're Beauregard.
And then there's Bootsy and Brad.
And then there's Bootsy and Brad.
And there's them. And they were vital to the plot this time, too.
Yeah.
Bootsy and Brad, what a weird thing that exists. I do love that Bootsy says Brad can be vice president. Like, there's not like you could be first man. Like, we are not.
Right, no.
Or there no chance we're getting married, Brad. You are like my assistant here. But yeah, I think like the fact that that does lead into the presidential election sort of kind of discussion between Gonzo and the crew was at least, again, something. But I think for me, the Willard Scott Fozzie thing could have been the entire half hour, sort of like you said, Sam, and I would have been perfectly fine with that.
I think I need someone to tell me why Bootsy and Brad are, like, why they fit in with the idea of Muppets or whatever. Is it like
why does it?
I need Jim
part
to
of the
be
show?
like, I need Jim to be like, this is why we had this idea and thought that it worked with. And is it like the facial prosthetics? And because it is like, I don't hate it, but it is just sort of like, I wish
right. Like, was it maybe we've talked before how Emmett Otter was sort of this testing ground for technology to try and see like, hey, if we can do this, we could probably make a Muppet movie.
Right.
And is there something to Bootsy and Brad where they're like, okay, we want to have these like characters interacting with characters above them in like a tiny kind of way, and we want to do these prosthetics, like you said. Like, was there something there that they thought would pay off in some way?
Well, it feels like it's a premise that's in search of jokes to say. So they're doing this like kind of 60s vibe where Brad says like, great, this is going to be a kinder, swingier nation. And they're also like talking like it's the 60s. And so I can kind of get where they're coming from. But then there's this question of like, okay, so what's funny though? Like what's, where do I laugh in this sketch?
It needs to be more, it needs to be more just in general, I think, of like a sitcom parody, or it needs to take it further when Brad is assuming, you know, maybe Bootsy can't be president or whatever. Or in this world, like he gets, like in the first episode we saw, he gets blown up and punished for being kind of an idiot. And that, I just feel like something needs to happen.
He should get dismembered every episode. There'd at least be a through line if he were dismembered.
Right,
well,
and like play off of tropes. Yeah. There should be anything at all in these ever.
There needs to be a punchline, and the Monster Telethon stuff is the same, where it's like it's cute and it's funny and I like the monsters, but they don't have a punchline. And they just
they're just interesting. They're more interesting to watch because they're Freckles. One has like a leisure suit and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Love that guy.
Love that guy. Don't want to meet him in person, but do love him. And I think like at least they're interesting to watch, and I don't know, they feel more like ominous, like something bad could happen even when it doesn't.
Like they could have shown up in the last number and done something maybe, or like
they could have shown up and just torn Brad apart. They could have ran into that little girl's room and said, "Hey, nice dolly, pop."
Yeah. But they really they needed punchlines, and they just kind of didn't have them. And the same is true. They do that story of like the king who became a hat sharpener, which is also sort of like this Shaggy Dog story that doesn't really go anywhere.
Right.
And then the punchline is like, until one day they blew it all up.
Yeah, which is like really the laziest description of a Muppet thing ever. Because, you know, in the early days, that was just every Muppet thing was, and then it blew up.
Yeah.
But you don't just say
you can't say it. Yeah.
Right. Kermit gives up. Like it's basically 2.5 episodes into his own show. Kermit is like, cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore.
And in the first episode, I think he says a couple times that the show isn't very good anyway. So,
my favorite part that we talked about was in episode 1 where he, like, after a sketch happens, he looks, I think, at Digit and goes, "Now what?" And I'm like,
right, yes.
Sir, you're in control. But yeah, it's like comparing this to, you know, Muppets Take Manhattan, of Kermit getting so frustrated and mad that he's put in charge that, like, he runs away, he can't do it anymore, to this just being like, "Hey, Kermit, do you mind if," he's like, "Oh yes, please, I don't want to do this anymore." And like knowing that this is around the same time period where Jim is talking about selling the Muppets to Disney and you know, moving to the background a little bit, I don't want to read too much into it, but it's interesting that those things are happening at the same time.
Well, and I mean, there's this really sort of sad little dark reflection of what's about to happen to the Muppets, where all of a sudden Kermit goes away, because Henson has died, and then like all the rest of the Muppets are standing around and being like, "Well, what do we do without him?" And they can't come up with anything.
Yeah,
and it just becomes like arguments. That's not a funny observation. It's a sad observation, but I'm going to make it anyway.
Well, I think that's, again, like, Muppets Take Manhattan does that well. Like, I think it's like seeing them go off and like, I guess we have to fend for ourselves and find some thing to do is interesting in that movie. But then when you take it to its actual, like, sort of real life parallel is going to be a bit harder. And I think, I imagine during that time period, there was potential infighting or talk of picking up the mantle from, somebody that you didn't expect to lose as early as you did. Whereas, if you have a 90-year-old boss at your company, you're like, we probably made some plans a while back.
Right.
But, losing somebody so suddenly who is such a key figure in this, I imagine created a bit of turmoil. I do like that king puppet, though. I will say.
He is a funny puppet, yeah.
The hat sharpener king guy, he's just a weird, I don't know, alien snail man with a mustache.
From something. He looks like one of those guys that's definitely from something else, but
he does. But I think he was created for this, and then he shows up in a couple other. He shows up in that Cosby episode that we'll watch eventually. But
I did I liked the like hodgepodge nature of that kingdom where there was like dragons and rats. I thought that it was like that was a fun place to be for a little while.
Yeah. I kind of it's interesting again, like the way we're watching things, just to see sort of the rise of Bean Bunny in this era.
He was funny in this episode. He only had like one line, but I liked it.
I enjoyed him in the first episode too, where he was an evil spaceman. Like, I like Bean Bunny in this, and I like that they're leaning into that he's so stupid cute that we kind of hate him thing.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about in the past. We saw Bunny Picnic, and then we've seen Muppet Vision. So like this, we don't know why people talk about him being annoyingly cute, really.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
And I would imagine most people who saw Muppet Vision even back in the day also maybe had never seen him before.
Yeah, I mean, according to the ratings, it seems like probably most people did not
yes.
see this version of Bean Bunny.
Yeah, but I think he's a valuable member of the Muppets. I love Bean Bunny.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it's, a bummer that it causes Rizzo to have to go to the background because it's just Steve Whitmire not being able to do two characters at once.
And Rizzo's just literally standing in the background for a lot of this.
I think that's the thing. If Rizzo wasn't there, I wouldn't miss him as much. But because he's always just kind of hanging out and silent, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So, I think it's that. Like, we talked earlier about Muppet Christmas Carol a bit. And knowing, we're kind of close to Muppet Christmas Carol in the grand scheme of things here. And seeing how they get from this to that tonal energy shift of Muppet Christmas Carol, I can imagine was a bit of a weird whiplash for people at the time. But also, again, pushing Rizzo into the forefront of a movie was maybe very odd at the time, too.
Yeah, Gonzo kind of in the Jim Henson Hour, Gonzo turns out to be like, he's important because he is kind of the link back to the Muppet Show. Like Piggy's not there. Fozzie's only on a TV screen. A lot of the other characters just aren't there, but like Gonzo is there kind of just to represent like the old Muppets.
Yeah, I think it's weird that we talked about this before too, of one of our biggest problems with episode 1 was not feeling like Kermit has a relationship with any of these people. It just feels like they're hired to work for him. And so there's not like this camaraderie of we're going to make this show great together, folks. Right. And instead it's just like him assigning tasks to people. And it's also getting weirder now. Again, we've just watched 2 of these, but it's already feeling weird to me that he's not even referencing his friends from the Muppet Show. Like Rolf is nowhere to be found. Scooter, what's he doing for work now? Like where are these folks at?
Right. Bunsen and Beaker could be there. Yeah.
Yeah. They have to go to the private sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in the pharmaceutical companies now.
Yeah. And Scooter's probably hates Vicky so much for stealing his jobs.
I can hold a clipboard, Kermit.
I can lick your boots, please.
But did you guys have any favorite parts of this episode, of the Muppet Television part?
I mean, Time Channel for me and Sweet Vacation, I think, is really cute. And just the whole, like, that moment of, like, oh, we didn't know how to run the show. And Kermit says, oh, running the show is easy. Watch. Cue the closing number. Is just, like, it's so cute. It's so real.
Yeah.
That is the way the show should have worked.
Like you said, Matt, there were a lot of better moments of writing in this. Like, I liked when everybody's roller skating around and what's the robot guy's name?
Digit.
Thinking Data. Digit. Digit roller skates by and he's like, I can't hear you. I'm on roller skates. It's such like a good Simpsons style, like old school.
I mean, it's exactly a Simpsons joke. If I can't hear you, I'm wearing a towel.
Yeah. Or I really liked, I think the the Muppet Monster Telethon for some reason just like seemed so like such a good fun idea to me, especially the way that they were, well, just like the concept of them calling everybody in America and threatening that, like shaking them down was so funny. And that when they're like, hey, is the late Mr. Hoskins there, or can you send us $20 tomorrow? It's like, that's great.
That's some Wilkins and Wonkins stuff right there.
Yeah.
Totally. Like that feels very much of that same energy.
Yeah, a Muppet hasn't told someone they're going to kill somebody in a pretty long time.
Yeah, we need more life-threatening Muppets is really what we're saying.
Yeah. So, but yeah, then when you take a step, so like it was kind of fun to watch, but then when you take a step back and look at it, it's kind of like, or I loved when the storybook closed and then opened again and everybody was all smashed up. And it's like you had all these really great individual moments, and how come on the Muppet Show and on Sesame Street, great individual moments feel better than, like, Sesame Street doesn't even have a connective tissue for when it goes to those things, but it still is just like, this all makes sense to me. And how come it's just like something sucks all the energy out of the room between every
I think because as you say that, like Sesame Street doesn't have a laugh track or a studio audience, so it's not missing that, but it does have music. Yeah, right. Even if it's like background, like wah, 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 like there's nothing here to drive us forward.
Yeah, and that is something that actually, like, pretty much every recurring segment on the Muppet Show had its own little music theme. So like Vet's Hospital did, Pigs in Space, At the Dance, The Swedish Chef had his own little theme, Muppet Labs had a little theme. Like every time you would cut to something, it would have a little bit of music to like get you through that.
Yeah.
And this is and that just doesn't exist for Jim Henson Hour. It's like, oh, let's just turn the channel and then boop.
Well, and that's how you like that's how you get people to like your stuff. Like repetition, like what people remember about Pigs in Space is not the misogynistic jokes. It's pigs in space.
Yeah, totally.
Like they don't remember the actual content. They remember it because you burned it into their brain. And so that's why nothing is seeping in week over week here. You're not like trying to build these new characters into something interesting or give me a reason to love them. Like, you know, early on in the Muppet Show where you have Rolf playing like You and I and George, you get these like slow contemplative moments with Rolf at the piano, and you're like, oh, this is Rolf's role. He's going to come in. He's the old timer. He's going to slow down the show a little bit and just give us a sweet little moment.
And this one kind of keeps you off balance of like, oh, now Link Hogthrop's here and he's talking. Does that mean all of our Muppet friends could come back at any moment? Like, I don't.
And why did you choose to bring him back of anyone?
Right.
Of anybody,
I don't know. It's an interesting show. The Willard Scott does so much work in this along with Frank, who is so good.
He really does
to make this episode like, you know, shine brighter in my memory in some ways. Again, I will reiterate the "see they don't pay me here, I live like a king on the fruitcake of strangers" line will live with me forever. But also just him immediately then going to a giant door that says "Danger, Willard's Fruitcake Archives."
That was awesome.
What's the danger, do we think, behind that door? I understand you don't want to steal Willard's fruitcake from his archives, but there's a danger inside that door.
Well, and Willard smashes down a wall with that fruitcake.
He burst through the weather map. And there's a moment in there
Fozzie doing the weather was actually really, really cute.
Yeah,
when he's like, "Good morning, America," and she's like, "Hey, watch your language."
Yeah. And that exists in the same episode where like 40 other things happened. That it's just, I don't know, that none of it made it like I don't know. It just like is not coherent, even though each individual piece is good, and that's just too bad.
Yeah, there are probably more like, you know, minute by minute. There's probably more good moments in this episode of Muppet Television than there is in like Muppet's Haunted Mansion.
I agree with that.
But there's something that it's the tone, it's the format. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel cohesive, and you get left kind of on your own in silence.
And I think it's easier to be like negative in a not fun way about something that could be good. Like like to nitpick it is only because it's like, this little thing had changed.
It's close, right?
It would have been so good.
Yeah. Well, and now John Hurt is a storyteller with the Soldier of Death. I figured I would be just as abrupt as Jim is into segueing us into that. So yeah, the Soldier of Death is the second half of this
Isn't
episode.
the Soldier and Death?
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
The Soldier in Death is the second half of this episode.
They're
the Soldier, played by Muldoon from Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that who he is? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the clever girl.
Right.
But yeah, this, Sam did a really good job of describing the actual beats of this story. I didn't necessarily think about how hilarious it was that the beggars give him the ability to whistle, the ability to dance, and then anything else in the world you could ever want.
Magic items that are like, I love that magic bag. Would be such a fun, like, towards the end of this, it felt like a video game that you figure out a cheat code to. And I love that feeling of him being like, I just have like such a great fucking idea about how I'm never gonna die. And it would be so fun to like have that bag and be able to like figure out little puzzles to get out of any situation.
But now that makes me want a video game that has a moment in it like when he goes to hell.
Yeah.
Where he's like, please just do this. And then he's like, wait, you have a bag. You almost got me.
Like,
yeah.
I want a moment in a video game where someone's like, wait a minute, you want to fight me? I see that you have this like, immunity idol or whatever you were wearing that like you can't die in this fight. Why would I fight you?
Yeah, you were level 900. I would never fight you in 100 years.
I did like that. The whole thing starts off and you're like, okay, so we can't whistle. We solved that problem. Thank goodness.
Right, yes.
He can't dance, and now he can kind of dance.
Kind of dance, yeah. You have to take on faith.
Well, if you listen to John Hurt, who's like, and now look at his dance. And you're like, it looks super goofy, John.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's him from the past dancing, Matt. He's talking about his own ability to dance.
Now look at his dance. But yes, the moment once he gives the third man who was playing cards his whole biscuit, and the guy gives him a card in a sack.
Yeah, it is. So
it leads
fun.
to a lot of fun lines where he says the word sack a lot.
Yes, yeah.
Like, and off he went, a skip and a whistle, and a light heart, and an empty sack. you can't say that on TV these days.
And there are devils, and there's an infinite number of cute puppet devils.
They looked so good too.
They look amazing. A problem that I have with a lot of like Jim Henson Creature Shop stuff that I've never been a fan of is because like it's really easy to admire the stuff, like the work and how good it is, but then I don't love like the story or the characters. And that's true here. Like you watch those little devils and they're amazing. And like even in close up, they're doing all kinds of little like facial movements.
Yeah. They're
and all kinds of complicated stuff. And they really look great. Like I don't love them. I don't love the story, but it feels like that's what the storyteller is kind of for. Is this like showcase for cool puppet stuff they can do?
I mean, when you said that earlier about warm and cold puppets, I think that is how not only they look, but also how they make you feel sometimes. Like you wanna hug Fozzie Bear. You don't want to pick up this devil because you're afraid something's going to poke you in the eye. Like the top of his wing is just, ow, this is this is terrible.
The ones with smooth skin, they're not as much fun to look at for sure.
Yeah, but I think they're really effective in this. In just, I don't know, they feel a little bit more like characters than some other Jim Henson Creature Shop, storyteller characters have that we've seen.
True.
And I think we just watched The Heartless Giant, which was not my favorite of the storytellers that we've watched. And I think in that, I think the giant is just sort of a one-off visual gag that then has very little personality or interest to him. And so in this, especially at the end when it's like, the devil comes back and he's like, hey, here's my devil. I'm like, I have so many more questions now than I had a few minutes ago. Have you guys just stayed in touch? What's going on?
I wanted to know that too.
But like the fact that he's just like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. You're the wife. I'm the devil. Nice to see you.
And this one also, last time we watched one, you pointed out that they were shorter than usual. And I was not able to shake that feeling.
No. Well, also, Sam, I'm wrong. No, I was an idiot.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I meant to text you about this. I think it's just a vibe because of coming off of Muppet Television. I had it in my head that when we had previously watched Storyteller that they were longer than this.
That's what I
but
thought
they weren't.
Yeah.
So somehow they were just better.
So the giant one is just not. I thought this one was just as good as any of my favorite. I really liked this one. This one is honestly one of my favorite storytellers. The giant one was not good. I agree with you. But this one, I think the Devils, because like you're saying, they were actually acting and they did kind of bridge that gap between just like interesting monster to look at and actual little guys that I believe in. And I thought it was just like by the end was so funny when he was putting death in a sack and then trying to get into hell. Is just like, I don't know. It's just my kind of thing, I guess.
Well, I think it's our problem. One of our problems with the Heartless Giant was that the main character was not interesting and didn't get much to do.
The soldier's much more fun.
Right. Yeah. The soldier's much more fun. I also think there's better writing in this episode, and just coincidentally, of the storyteller, like there was in Muppet Television, where there's some wild lines that just stick with me again, like, geese, oi, get in my sack. But also he walks into the bar whistling and the guy's like, that's a nice whistle. And just like, I think what this episode does that the best storyteller episodes do is it instantly just creates a world where you have to accept some things are true and don't question it, because in this world, which we don't know when or where it is, this man can walk to hell. He can walk to heaven. Yes. He can just like easily my favorite line of this whole thing is when the devils are telling him how to get to heaven, and the last instruction is, and listen for the church music.
Yeah.
Because that just, it doesn't make sense. Like, but to us, the viewer, of course, that's what heaven would sound like.
Right. It feels like it feels like a little D&D adventure with his magic bag. And there's just something satisfying about his gameplay loop of catching and releasing things.
Yeah, he's a little OP at a certain point.
Totally, yeah.
And yet there's sort of this question of like, so if you like Muppet Television, like, do you like this? Do you like the storyteller?
I was trying to think of the exact
what is the
same
connection
thing.
between those things? Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you might turn it off if you're a big Muppet fan. And, I think there's a lot of people who are diehard Muppet Show people who don't love things like Dark Crystal. And you have obviously diehards who love Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, but I think they honestly, and a lot of times, like Muppet Show things less than we might. Yeah. So I think there is a divide amongst Henson fans, and I wonder how prevalent that was at the time and how much that led to people not wanting to watch half of the show.
Mm-hmm. And you watched the show, I assume, Annie, while it was on?
Yeah.
What did you like both parts, or did you like neither part?
I had, I was always going to be more interested in the Muppet stuff than the storyteller stuff. Mm-hmm. But the Muppet stuff has that weird feel. Like basically like what I've been talking about while we've been here. That was what I thought back then too. Like just the weirdness and the coldness of it. Mm-hmm. And really wanting it to work for Jim's sake and wanting it to work for the Muppets' sake.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that is coming up. You'll see Dog City, which is really fun, and you'll see Miss Piggy's Hollywood, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
So
lots
there's
of
definitely
people have said Dog City is great.
Dog City is great. Like, and that's because it's an all Muppet hour.
Yeah.
And when it's Muppet Television, and then Miss Piggy's Hollywood is an all Muppet hour. Mm-hmm. But like looking at Lighthouse Island, you'll see Lighthouse Island. It's not that great. Monster Maker is not that great. Like there's all of these like creature shop stuff that Jim is really into and is very excited about. But yeah, like you said, like he doesn't connect that to like, and here's work that we're doing. It's just like, here's the thing I like.
Well, I think, and the audience
get
to know that
go there with him. Yeah.
Like we know why Jim is doing these things. Like we have watched so many things. We've read so many things that we understand what Jim is more interested in sometimes with puppetry. But I think when I'm watching these, as much as I enjoy some of the storyteller things, I think I'm enjoying the storyteller sometimes in spite of the Muppet Television segments, because at least it's cohesive. At least it's a story. It is something. Whether or not it's my favorite thing, whether I'm going to rewatch it, probably not. But in comparison to the Muppet Television, I'm like, well, that was clear what it was supposed to be and where the payoff was.
Right. I agree. And it's funny that like the ethos of this show is like hidden in a bunch of television interviews that he did around this time, of like that home visit that we watched a couple episodes ago where he's on like Good Morning America and they're in the workshop. That's way more satisfying than any of his hosting segments.
Yeah.
He just needs to tell us what we're supposed to be getting out of this a little bit more.
Well, and he wants to be he wants to be a serious artist. Like that's part of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Is that like he doesn't just want to be like the fun comedy guy, Muppet guy. He wants to do something like capital I important.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he's taking these swings in order to kind of get that to become that, like a real artist.
I guess it's easy to look from where we are now back and be like, you were already there. You didn't have to try. Like you were trying too hard to convince us or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like how we've seen Jim in interviews talk about the early days of the Muppets and Sam and Friends and things, sometimes with a bit of like, ugh, that early stuff was so rough and bad. I can't believe we did that. And everyone else is like, are you kidding me? That's some of the best stuff you've ever done, sir. Yeah. It's so good. And I think it's just, the perspective of the man making it is going to be very different from those watching it 50 years later. But I also, I do respect Jim trying to push things forward. And I think making a show where you're sort of trying to put what you think is best for the TV viewing audience out there is, again, a lovely thing to try and do. I do also agree, Sam, what you said earlier. It feels like he had his hand tied behind his back a little bit in trying to get done. And so there is this mysterious, unseen, uncreated version of the Jim Henson Hour that if it was exactly what Jim had wanted from the start, where every week was a different sort of format, who knows what that would have been.
But he also made Liquid Television all by himself, too.
You keep saying Liquid Television, and we keep messing that up. It's not Liquid Television.
What was it?
Inner Tube.
Sorry.
The Inner Tube and just that style of thing that somehow did eventually get to live.
Work either.
No, but it kind of ended up being the Jim Henson Hour in very they just added Kermit in, and they're like, I guess it's better now.
Right. Okay.
I guess what I'm trying to say, is if he got to make whatever he wanted to, maybe he would have made Inner Tube also, and that would not have worked.
Right. So. It's sort of for me, I look back on my life and think, I'm really glad I didn't have money in my bank account when I wanted that bad tattoo. Because if I had gotten every tattoo I ever thought I really wanted when I wanted it, I would be covered in the worst tattoos you've ever seen.
That rules.
So, if Jim had all of the money and all of the freedom to do whatever he wanted, the nation would be covered in terrible projection discos.
Yes,
and
yes.
So maybe we would have never had a Muppet show because he would have invested all of his time and money.
Yeah, he would have opened one, gone broke, and had to work as an accountant or something like that.
Yes. So that's why I think the Jim Henson Hour, as much as it's a weird thing, as much as we're not enjoying it maybe as I hoped we would, I still do see the seeds of the interesting thing there.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm really glad there's not 100 episodes of it that we have to get through.
Yeah.
But there's good stuff coming up. There's definitely stuff to look forward to.
But any last thoughts on the soldier and Death?
No, I did. The one thing I noticed was how much Death looked like the creepy little girl from the Ghost of Christmas Past.
So I actually put this question out on our commitment Patreon Discord. Which one's creepier to you? This Gollum Chucky hybrid of Death in this, or the Ghost of Christmas Past from Muppet Christmas Carol?
I'm overthinking the Ghost of Christmas Past is creepy. I think I've looped back to she's supposed to be creepy on a little bit creepy on purpose, so it's not as much fun to think she's creepy. Death, when you said Chucky, immediately clicked to me that I don't like that there's potentially an invisible little man scampering around who looks like that. That's
the moment his eyebrows went I'm like, that's Chucky face.
I do like that he was when he's scared of that guy and runs away is pretty good.
He turns into a full grown man in a robe and is just like,
yeah. Danny, what do you think? Which one's scarier?
Death is scarier. Death is scarier because you only see him through a glass
cup. Ugh,
yeah,
that's creepy.
Yeah, but I mean, he is lovely in the way that the devils are lovely. He's interesting to look at.
Yeah, totally.
But you can't. But you don't love him.
You can't love
Death.
No.
I imagine that puppet ended up in a drawer somewhere. And unfortunately, someone's going to open that drawer at the workshop and be like, "Ah, son of a bitch!" I can't. He's hiding.
They used all the gears in his face for some other puppet, maybe.
Yeah. They just peeled his skin off one day, and they're like, "You're a dog now."
Oh,
exactly.
Oh, now he's even creepier. Peeling death.
Those death servos are somewhere still out there being used.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, I do want to check in with both you guys and see what non-Muppet things you might have enjoyed this week. Danny, why don't you go first?
For me, it is Murderbot. I don't know if you guys have heard about Murderbot. It is a book series and just recently a TV series, which I found out about because of the show. It's Murderbot is like science fiction comedy about a security unit, like a bot construct that's built to basically to kill people, and that's why it calls itself Murderbot. And the security unit that's the main character has hacked his own governor module so that he doesn't actually have to follow directions and he can do whatever he wants. But instead of like murdering everybody, what he really wants to do is just download and watch soap operas.
Man.
And so it is the story of like
that.
He has to keep pretending that he exists in order to provide security and kill people. But really that's not what he wants to be doing with his life. And he ends up in a lot of very funny adventures. So the TV show that was just on Apple TV, I think, that first season just came out, and I watched that. And now I'm going and I'm reading all of the Murderbot books and stories, and there's like 8 of them. Really funny, really like satisfying sci-fi adventure with like a great main character who has a really great attitude.
Way back in the day, the merch company that my wife works for sold merch for that first book.
Oh,
and
really?
I illustrated a little Murderbot like 10 years ago or something like that. And I listened to the book on tape and like read the book, and I haven't read the rest of them. I don't know why, but I loved that first book so much.
Yeah.
And I loved like the narrator, and I liked the show, but I had such a picture in my head of what that character was, and it wasn't quite that handsome dude. It wasn't quite which Skarsgård is he?
Alexander Skarsgård, yeah.
Yes, he wasn't quite Alexander Skarsgård, but I still liked that show. But that book is real. Those books are really fun.
Yeah, they really are.
My wife and I watched the first season of Peacemaker slowly, and then we got to the beginning of the second season. We were like, oh wow, this is good. And then we watched the whole second season in one day. Yeah. And then the last episode comes out this week. I really like that show. It's not the best show ever, and it's kind of stupid, and there's moments where you're like classic James Gunn silly goofiness that doesn't really quite work. But the second season's really good and really sad in that like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 kind of way. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed living in that world. I like his like unashamed take on superheroes, where nobody even like comments on the fact that they're superheroes. It's like such a foregone conclusion that they exist in that world, that it's not like Marvel where it's like you have to prove why you exist, or like you are the symbol of all of America or anything like that. It's sort of just like, well, yeah, there's a guy who lives down the street who wears a costume all the time and beats people up, and everybody's just perfectly fine with that for some reason. But yeah, that was fun, and I'm very excited for the last episode.
Yeah, somebody who just finished season 1 of the old Daredevil Netflix show. That I love that. I ended up loving it. I'd never seen it before. And there was that feeling though of just like, come on, just tell everyone you're Daredevil. Just do it. Put on the costume and just say, hey, everybody, I'm Matt Murdock. I'm a superhero. We're all cool with this, right?
Yeah, It is really interesting that I've never thought that hard about the differences between DC and Marvel, but it is there are way less secret identities in DC, I think, generally. Like Batman obviously is the big famous one, but a lot of other people, like at this point in the 2020s or whatever, a lot of those characters are just like, I'm just Wonder Woman.
They're
like I used to turn it into. Yeah. Right. I like Clark Kent obviously is a big one too. But yeah, there's a lot of them who are just like, this is just who I am all the time.
Yeah. Well, and even as much as I enjoyed the new Superman movie, there is only one scene pretty much with Clark Kent being like in disguise. And so I don't feel like James Gunn has much of an interest in the, secret identity kind of side
and then
of
by the
things.
end of that movie, it kind of seems like everybody knows that he's Superman anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah. Matt, what about you?
I've been playing Ghost of Yote,
of course,
which just came out. I'm not that far into it because, again, newborn baby in the house. Not a lot of time to play bloody, violent video games. So yeah, I've been enjoying that a lot.
Hard. Is it hard?
I mean, not so far. It feels pretty on par with the previous game so far, at least. I do like the differences they've done so far, and I like just having a new place to explore, a new open world game that, that was one of my biggest bummers about Tears of the Kingdom was like, hey, it's another open world Zelda. It is the same map, and we added a dark cave that isn't that interesting. And
that
I was
was
like,
one
okay.
of the only things I liked about that game. I like that everybody that you walked by was also like, "Hey, Link, what's going on?" And
yeah,
that you
I just think that could have been more interesting. And I think that opening it up to a whole different area of Japan and a whole different time period is just, it gives you the feeling of the first game, but lets you don't know anything yet, so you're still learning. And this game has a fun dynamic where you can go back into your childhood. You can just zap back to your childhood where you're in the same spot as a kid and can do things and then as a kid you'll run up and carve something into a tree or like that, and then you zap back to current time and you can see where you carved that in the tree. And so it uses that timeline stuff in a fun way. But yeah, on top of that, I've just been reading Jaws as well for some reason. I've never read the book of Jaws, so I just decided to go back and read that because it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite movie of all time. So figured I should probably dive into the source material.
Isn't it kind of sexy?
There's sexy is maybe the wrong word, but it's definitely feels more pulpy than you might imagine.
Right.
Of there's more crime, there's more sex, there's more just a little bit of raunchiness across the board.
Really?
Yeah, and just
that
very
so
casual.
Does not come through the movie. Yeah.
No, yeah, they cut out a lot of stuff. Even in the intro, the author, the edition I'm reading is a later edition after the movie had come out, and he even lists things. He's like, "So get ready to learn about the mob storyline." Yeah, you didn't see that one coming, did you? Even he's like, "Yeah, they cut that stuff out." I'm fine with it.
They had a giant shark to show us, and that was what they wanted to do.
That's right. We don't
I think Spielberg made the right choices from what I've seen so far in the book, as far as what he cut out. Well, Danny, where would you like people to follow you on the internet, or what do you want them to listen to? Do you want them to go read all 20 years of your Muppet Wiki articles and Tough Pigs writings? Where should they start?
The thing I've done recently is the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast, which they can find on the Tough Pigs Muppet Fan podcast feed. Super fun, super getting into the weeds, and I do some great interviews with Bonnie Erickson, who originally designed Miss Piggy, and Callista Hendrickson, who was the first Piggy's first costume designer, Craig Shemin, a lot of interesting folks. And I also, in the last episode of the season, I talk about Campo, which was the committee to award Miss Piggy the Oscar,
right?
Which turns out to be a really fun, interesting story that I get very deep into.
Yeah.
So Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast is really fun. You can check out Muppet Pictures on Facebook and Blue Sky and Twitter still. I recently did an episode of the 70 Years, 70 Muppets podcast for Tough Pigs about Menomina. It was me and JD Hansel. And that was so much fun, and I think so funny. So people should go and check that out. And then, I have go and look at what's new on Muppet Wiki. There is always, amazingly, 20 years in, there is always something new that we have discovered, new stuff to find.
Stresses me out because 4 years ago I went and took it all and put it all in a spreadsheet, and I was like, let's go, Sam, we're gonna get through this. And then suddenly it's
more stuff.
This entire TV show you didn't know existed now is on the Muppet Wiki. I'm like, but do we have to go back and watch all? Oh no, what's happening? And thankfully Shane Keating is in our Discord and is extremely helpful at saying, hey, we found this thing, hey, this thing is new. So we're on top of the newly found things usually.
Excellent.
Yeah. But it does always feel a little bit like one step forward, two steps back whenever it's like, hey, we found 8 more episodes of Jimmy Dean Show you have to talk about.
Right. Just a lot of what I do on the wiki these days is the merchandise. Really wanting to create a huge catalog of all of the Muppet and Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock merchandise. And it turns out there was so much of it and spread all over the world that we're still finding new old stuff, stuff I've never seen before.
Shane recently shared with us photos of some Formula One Bert and Ernie toys from Germany, and I was like, I must own those now. And it's like, of course you can't find them anywhere because there was probably 12 of them made in Germany 30 years ago, and it's like, but that's such a niche, my thing that I want it. And I'm not even that big of a collector of memorabilia, but that's one of those, such a specific thing that I if it ever is available, I will track it down.
You will find it.
I definitely encourage people to go listen to the Miss Piggy podcast, not only because of your great guests, because, as a person who has been lucky enough to meet Bonnie Erickson, holy cow, one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Nice. And getting to have just even the 5-minute conversation I had with her was, you know, a little bit life-changing, I will say. And so I think it's just getting to hear those conversations and diving into the Campo stuff. I think it's just, I think it's a nice little, you've heard us mention some of these things in passing. If you want to deep dive into them, go listen to this podcast.
And this is it's the thing that you guys have found here, that like just taking something really seriously, the more that you look at it, the more interesting things there are to find in there. And that's what the Fantastic Miss Piggy podcast is about. It's just like looking at her super closely to see what else can we learn.
Well, I'm so happy we had you here to finally meet you, but also just to, you know, explore the world of Danny Horn a bit and get to, you know, the people who listen to this podcast who maybe don't know that much about Muppet Wiki or Tough Pigs to understand your part in this whole story.
Well, it has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, next time we will continue with episode 4 of the Jim Henson Hour called Dog City.
Oh, we're already on Dog City.
We are at Dog City, folks. All right. This is the one everyone keeps telling us about. So we are going to see what all the fuss is about. We'll see if we enjoy it as much as everyone else has. But we also will be watching Jim and Kermit appearing on an episode of the Pat Sajak Show, because that happened the same week.
In May show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, Sam, do you not know Pat Sajak as famous talk show host who had a talk show from January 1989 to April 1990?
Wow. Okay. All right.
It lasted at least a year.
Yeah. That's great. That's a better run than some people do.
And he had Kermit the Frog on, so.
On longer than the Jim Henson Hour.
Oh, you're right. So we will be headed into May of 1989 as we watch those two things. So we also need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to commitment.com for all commitment needs. And while you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to rate and review us on your platform of choice. You can leave comments on Spotify, which is a thing that apparently you've been able to do since the beginning of this podcast. And Sam just told me a week ago that that's a thing that people can do.
If you've been trying to talk to us, sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you existed.
Get on the Discord.
There are some lovely comments on Spotify that I've enjoyed reading through. So maybe I'll do a deep dive and see if there's any questions we want to answer from there at some point. But also all of our episodes are now going up on YouTube, and all past episodes are also on YouTube. We figured out a super simple way, thanks to YouTube's features, to make that happen.
You figured it out.
Yes. But we promised, I think, probably 3 years ago that all episodes were going to be on YouTube, and we didn't do that because it was a very manual process. But now YouTube made it easy to connect the podcast, so it automatically does it every week. So if you choose to listen on YouTube, you can now do that. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at mail@commitment.com or follow us on social media places at commitmentpod or at commitment.com on Blue Sky. And you can always follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.